Kathleen Kennedy and Disney Star Wars drama is happening once again, and let me tell you, this one is loaded. Just in the past couple of days, three major headlines have dropped, each one showing that there's another crack in Disney's takeover of the Star Wars universe ran by Kathleen Kennedy under Kathleen Kennedy and her leadership. Now, whether you're a fan of Disney's direction with Star Wars or a lifelong fan of the originals who are not happy with where things are going, one thing is clear: this latest news is tough to ignore, and Kathleen Kennedy is right at the center of it all. So, welcome back to Views with Hughes, Agenda Free News. This is Jerome Hughes. Now, let's go ahead and get right into it. All right. Now, here's what we're dealing with right now. First up, the writer of the Kathleen Kennedy led race-centered Star Wars movie left the project, as you all know. Another writer out of the door as a result of the ongoing issues under Kathleen Kennedy's oversight. And mind you, he's not the first to go either. We get into word of Gina Carano's latest win on court, which brings in even more scrutiny to the choices that made under Kathleen Kennedy and her leadership at Lucasfilm. And on top of that, it seems that Kathleen Kennedy will remain as president of Lucasfilm until at least mid-2025. Now, whether that's a good thing or not for the future of Star Wars, well, let's talk about that, because Kathleen Kennedy and her leadership is driving this whole conversation, okay? But let's start with the most shocking news here. The writer of the Rey movie, which was moving forward under Kathleen Kennedy and her guidance, has left the project. As you all know, Stephen Knight, known for his work on Peaky Blinders, apparently had enough of Kathleen Kennedy's involvement, okay? Now, we're talking about a guy who's highly respected in the industry, who knows how to write compelling stories, and yet here he is saying, I'm done, okay? And why? From what we can gather, it sounds like Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm executives were constantly given quote-unquote notes on his work, expecting him to rewrite things over and over again. And this isn't the first time we've seen a talented writer or director throwing the towel under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership at Lucasfilm. There's been other creative people who are getting fed up with the interference, and they're leaving in droves, and that's not just a coincidence. It all points back to the creative environment under Kathleen Kennedy. And that's no surprise right there either. And let's all be real here right now. Who is Kathleen Kennedy to be handing out all these so-called notes on storytelling? You see, Kathleen Kennedy is a producer, people, a talented one, no doubt, with a long career, but she's not a writer. And she doesn't have it anymore as a producer. Now, storytelling is a different skill set, one that you develop by doing, not by managing. And don't get to just rewrite stories to fit a corporate checklist of what Kathleen Kennedy thinks fans want. If Kathleen Kennedy really has such a strong ideas on what Star Wars should be, maybe she should try writing and directing a movie herself. And if that's a hit, then I'll eat my words. But if something tells me that wouldn't go that way. Now, Kathleen Kennedy being a great producer doesn't automatically make her a great storyteller or make her still a great producer. But with Knight's Action, this isn't just about one writer leaving. It's about the Rey movie's future as a whole, all under Kathleen Kennedy leadership. And then Disney and Lucasfilm under Kathleen Kennedy keep announcing these projects that sound big and exciting on paper, only to have them fall apart behind the scenes. And it's almost like, Kathleen Kennedy and her team are setting things up just to tear them down. And we've seen this movie before, haven't we? Now, delays, so-called creative differences, and then sooner or later the project's quietly scrapped. And this trend points back to Kathleen Kennedy and her playbook, and it's all too familiar. Now, if you enjoy the content that I'm sharing in this video and I'm putting out there, be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates, and also be sure to smash the like button as well. But Disney seems to be having some serious second thoughts about a movie centered around Rey, and honestly, I don't think many fans would be heartbroken if it didn't happen. I wouldn't be. And under Kathleen Kennedy's vision, Rey's character was mismanaged right from the beginning, where she was introduced as an all-powerful, perfect Jedi who didn't struggle to have to struggle to grow or in a meaningful way. Now compare that to Luke Skywalker, who had to overcome doubts and fears and real challenges to become a Jedi. That's what made him, relatable. And under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, Rey just shows up and does everything flawlessly. And it's hard to connect with that. And I think it's a big reason why so many fans have had a hard time getting invested in her story. Meanwhile, Kathleen Kennedy is now facing another wave of backlash with Gina Carano's legal victory against Disney. And this sends another strong message and puts Kathleen Kennedy back in the spotlight. with her firing was controversial to say the least. And she was let go for the Mandalorian under what a lot of people feel were, unfair circumstances. Now she's scoring wins left and right and stuff, causing more headaches for Disney and especially for Kathleen Kennedy. So you've got this ongoing legal drama, bad PR and everything that's happening and stuff, and from where the Titans walking away from Star Wars project, and it's a mess that Kathleen Kennedy is right there at the center of it all. And now we hear what Kathleen Kennedy is going anywhere until at least the second quarter of 2025. And that's about 6 more months from now. And sure, some people might be thinking, well, that means she's not getting fired. But if you take a close look at the way they phrased it, it might actually mean that Disney's just giving Kathleen Kennedy a soft exit. Now, why they say until the second quarter of 2025, if you plan to keep Kathleen Kennedy around, you don't put an end date on it. This could be Disney's way of letting Kathleen Kennedy go gradually without making it look like they're actually panicking. And I'm not saying, I want anyone else to lose their job, but let's talk about performance here. And Kathleen Kennedy's leadership hasn't even delivered a hit for Star Wars in a long time. Now, the simple truth is Kathleen Kennedy hasn't brought Lucasfilm any major success recently. Her track record lately has been shaky at best. And you know what? The Mandalorian was a bright spot, but beyond that, things aren't looking good. And she didn't really have much to do with the Mandalorian. But at some point, you have to look at the numbers of the critical reception in the fan base. And if Kathleen Kennedy isn't meeting expectations, it's only natural for a company to start thinking about a change. And Disney's a company that should know how to make money, and they're not dumb. Well, I take that back. But they've got to know that under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership, the Star Wars fan base is frustrated. And you can see it in how they're approaching this, and they're trying to figure out a way to fix things without looking like they're scrambling. Now, the problem is we all know that they're scrambling, and they're throwing away everything they can at this franchise, hoping something will stick, and it's not working. But at some point, they need to stop trying to change Star Wars to something that is not, and start listening to the fans who have loved this galaxy for over 40 years. And Kathleen Kennedy, her approach has to change if they're going to pull this off. Okay, but what exactly is really going on here? Because it seems that the Rey movie drama is just the tip of the iceberg of Kathleen Kennedy's Star Wars failed vision. Now, this is about Disney losing control of Star Wars narrative under Kathleen Kennedy's leadership. They came in with big promises and high hopes, as well as and other things, but somewhere along the way, things went off the rails under Kathleen Kennedy when she decided to go ahead and push the woke identity politics. Now, pushing this new version of Star Wars that doesn't really align with what fans fell in love with in the first place, they wanted to add their own spin to it, which sometimes works, but when you're taking away what made it great by putting woke politics in it, that's where Kathleen Kennedy and Disney didn't need to fix Star Wars because it wasn't even broken. And yet, here we are. Now, I think a lot of fans are feeling burnt out on Star Wars because under Kathleen Kennedy's, well, at least Disney Star Wars, because under Kathleen Kennedy's guidance, is no longer a story driven by creativity and passion. It feels like a product made by a committee with every decision run through a corporate filter. Now, what would make Star Wars feel fresh again? Let the writers and directors who genuinely care about it work the magic without Kathleen Kennedy's interference, or, as I've always said, fire the whole Lucasfilm and story the current Lucasfilm story group. Now, and then bringing new ones who know about Star Wars and let them tell the stories they want to tell. If they make mistakes, fine, we can live with that. But at least it'll be authentic, which Kathleen Kennedy and her approach hasn't allowed for. Now, Disney can turn this around, but it's going to take more than just delaying or scrapping a movie here or there. They need a real course correction where they need to go ahead and remember why Star Wars worked in the first place. And it had heart, and depth, and yes, strong characters that grew, struggled, and overcame real challenges. It didn't need to cater to, every demographic checklist or to try to hit some arbitrary quota that Kathleen Kennedy seems to be prioritizing. Okay, so what do you all think? Is it time for Kathleen Kennedy and Disney to take a good hard look in the mirror and admit that they finally might be a part of the problem here, or am I just a guy stuck in the past, too hung up on what Star Wars used to be? Let me know your thoughts about this in the comments below. Also, be sure to include any additional thoughts you may have on this particular topic. If you enjoyed what I said in this video, go ahead and smash the like button, share this video far wide across social media. And if you haven't done so already, you enjoyed all the content that I put out there, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Watch my latest videos also. Click the bell notification so that way you're notified of future uploads and updates. Till then, peace.